You're listening to Thursday Night AMP on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Sounds of everybody's favorite AC/DC clone can only mean one thing. It is time again for Thursday Night AMP. I'm your host, Stevie J. I got two people on the line with me ready to talk about all things pro wrestling and MMA. And first, it's Jason Harland, a.k.a. The Great Sudoku.
Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto.
Thank you very much for being there to help me escape when I needed to.
Indeed, indeed.
So we may just go old school tonight. But then again, if we get our special call that comes in a little later, we may get new school as well. But that remains to be seen. We may have a mystery guest, we may not. But we do have a confirmed guest on the line who will be doing double duty. He will both be our interview and our co-host chair because Jordan Garber could not join us tonight. So sitting in his stool is Rob McCarron from Shake Them Ropes.
Yeah, hi. I was originally very disappointed that I wasn't the mystery guest, as I've always wanted to be a mystery guest. But if I'm pulling double duty as the guest co-host and interview, I think that's pretty special.
Well, if you were the mystery guest, would you also hail from parts unknown?
Yeah, I could do that. Yep, I can move. Yep.
We'll put him in a hood for that one.
Oh, yeah, he'll have to come out wearing the giant machine mask and be billed from parts unknown.
I do as told, I do as told.
Yeah, like you said, you'll speak when spoken to. That was our conversation off the air. But since that's the role you're going to fill, let's speak about how you became Mr. Shake Them Ropes, how you got into doing your own internet wrestling radio show like ours.
Yeah, so I host a weekly podcast called Shake Them Ropes. It is part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network because Stevie J wouldn't return my calls originally. It's kind of a long story. So I started with wrestling websites and being kind of a part of that all the way back in like 2003, 2004 when I wrote different things for a website called ProWrestling.com, which has since not been around, but it might be something else nowadays. But yeah, ProWrestling.com. And then later on in 2008, I found Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer and the F4W site. And for the last 3 years, I was writing the weekly Raw recaps on the front page. And I started doing this podcast with Jeff Hawkins called Shake Them Ropes. Originally, we didn't have a name for like the first 4 months, but it was just out of a hobby. I went to school for telecommunications. I've always been really interested in radio and audio. And with the explosion of podcasts, I wanted to get into some of this. And one of the podcasts I started was a weekly talking of WWE, and it eventually grew into Shake Them Ropes, and I've been doing it now for the last year and a half, and we have a little bit of a following here, and I'm on Twitter at Shake Them Ropes, and it's been a fun time with Jeff Hawkins, so we do it regularly, it's fun, and it's allowed me a chance to meet interesting people like all of you tonight.
Now, I have to throw in a side note. This is obscure to the people who aren't on the Observer. Those who are will know what I'm talking about. But initially, when I met Jeff, I only knew him as the guy with the Strongman avatar in his profile. So I immediately met him. I'm like, oh, crap game. It's a crap game.
Right.
I started doing Strongman for him. He's like, who's this crazy guy? Oh, Stevie J.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta be ready to just make a fool of yourself when you try to do the weird introductions because you don't know how the other person's going to take it. Like, you hope that they get it because, after all, they're the ones who started it, with an icon like that. But if they don't get it, then you're kind of in hot water. Like, this is the introduction I just gave, and now he doesn't get it. What am I doing?
No, he totally got it. He knew what I was doing. So I lucked out with that one. So Jeff and I hit it off right away. And then you and I hit it off right away, too. So a grand time was had by all. But let's delve a little deeper into the well here. What made you fall in love with pro wrestling before you even went to ProWrestling.com and started doing stuff for them? What brought you in?
Yeah, I first started watching pro wrestling in 1997. So I was born in 1985. So I was 12 years old. I started watching wrestling because my younger brother actually, was into WCW. So he really liked WCW. I started watching that. I came along the time when, the NWO was battling Sting. And I was just always so enthralled by the fact that for the entire show, the question was always, where is Sting? And then at the end, he would show up, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever that this guy was coming down from the top of the ceiling. At the end of every episode of Nitro, it seemed, just beating everyone up. I thought it was the coolest thing. The first ever time I ever saw WWF was an episode of Raw. It was the segment where Jeff Jarrett returned and kind of shot on WCW and Vince McMahon and Eric Bischoff. So ever since then, Jeff Jarrett was my favorite wrestler of all time. So that's the area of time where I got into it. It was the mid to late 1997 when Bret Hart was jumping from WWF to WCW. Like, the first time I ever saw Bret Hart was in WCW. I never saw him in WWF just because I'm a 12-year-old kid. I'm just watching TV a little bit of a time at night, and I would watch WCW over WWF because, there's no DVRs back then. The best you could do is try to videotape one channel and watch the other. And I wasn't really doing that at 12 years old. So my first experience with Bret Hart was in WCW. My first experience with Jeff Jarrett was him being this cool guy taking over the show on Raw. And, I was a Sting fan. I was one of those NWO fans from the late 90s just because they were the first things I saw in it. I just thought it was so cool. And ever since then, really, probably since 1999, I've really watched every episode of Raw, save for a handful, ever since then. So I've just been a fan of it ever since I was 12.
Well,
and you picked a really good time to get into wrestling, too. Right in 97 when things started to take off, you had the Attitude Era and WWF starting to take off. Like you were saying, you had the NWO and Sting, and that was still hot. That hadn't quite gotten played out in WCW. You also had ECW, which was a major player. It's like you had three major promotions. You had the Monday Night Wars, and you had ECW on the periphery, and it was a great time to be a wrestling fan back then.
It was really great, too, because, say if I would have gotten into WWF or WCW like 3 years earlier, even 3 years earlier, I'm probably still not a fan. Like, I'm probably not thrilled by anything to the point where I would want to keep watching week after week.
Yeah, who wants to see Dungeon of Doom week after week?
Yeah, if I got in from 2003 to 2005, I'm probably not sticking around. Like, it's a matter of when you get into it and what's hot at that point. Like the kids nowadays who are getting into it, who have been, fans of John Cena and will always be fans of John Cena because that's what they loved as a kid. Like, 20 years from now, people will be praising John Cena's past, as rightfully they should, because John Cena's excellent. But still, John Cena is going to be the Hulk Hogan for a lot of fans growing up. It's just a matter of when you get into it. And I was pretty lucky, or unlucky, if you want to think of it that way, to get in the late 90s. And you mentioned ECW. Like, I didn't know anything about ECW. Like, I was not an internet guy in this point until, late 90s, early 2000s when it was starting to get along and we got like AOL. And I would watch really all the shows. And then I started hearing about ECW, and you would watch like the scrambled pay-per-view feeds of ECW shows. Because I was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We didn't get ECW on TV. So the best I could do was hear about ECW online and then kind of listen to the shows in a scrambled feed when they were on pay-per-view. And I remember doing that like the night when Taz finally lost the ECW title to Mike Awesome when he was going to the WWF. I remember listening to that show on a scrambled feed, and that was my exposure to ECW until about 2000, was just, listening to those feeds and trying to hear bits and pieces of what was going on.
Well, Rob, you mentioned Fort Wayne, so I have to ask you a question because the guys from the Undisputed Wrestling Show would literally kick my ass if I didn't ask you this. Are you going to Heroes and Legends? Because you can meet 2/3 of the NWO there and live your WCW fantasy. Hall and Nash are both going to be there.
There's a good chance I'll be working that show.
Oh, well, then we'll discuss that momentarily, but I believe we have a guest on the line. Is this Daniel Puder?
Yes, it is. What's happening, guys?
Not much. Thank you for calling in tonight. This is Thursday Night AMP. We're very honored and pleased to have Daniel Puder, one of the winners of Tough Enough, right here on the air with us. And there's a new season of Tough Enough going on right now. So let me ask first and foremost, what are your thoughts on the current show?
You know what? I was watching some video 2 nights ago, and I think it is the worst show I've ever seen.
That's a shoot, brother, huh? You don't care for it one bit.
No, I was watching them cut some promos on the improv at the improv studio, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, Jericho, was like talking smack against a chick, and I'm thinking to myself, dude, what are you doing? Like, I understand the whole thing with getting in, and building up the new talent, this and that, but, the challenge is, it's like freaking the Crips and Bloods, you know what I'm saying? They just go kill each other off, and then, somebody else comes in and takes their territory. It's like they don't build their team. When you go to the NFL or, when I was an MMA fighter, you would actually build your team up because you wanted a stronger team. But nothing has changed, it's crazy, man, how they just smash some of the new talent.
It is very true. That's what they do. It's reality show television because it's designed to create drama and conflict and get people invested in seeing these people tear each other down, which you know very well from firsthand experience being part of Tough Enough. They artificially created drama just for you, like the segment you had with Kurt Angle on SmackDown. That was artificial. Every part of that, other than you were the only real part when you shot on him.
Yes, and I kicked his ass. And I'll do it again if he ever wants to get in the ring.
Well, he is 46 now, and he just had a tumor removed from his neck, so you may not get that chance. That may have been your one and only chance.
You know what hospital is he in? I'll go track him down. I'll go find out where he's at. What's up, man?
Oh, well, I don't even know if you want to even take that challenge, because now he's going back to the hospital for a second time to have fluid removed from his neck from the surgery he just had. So the guy's in pretty rough shape. It wouldn't be much of a contest right now.
Oh, I feel terrible for him.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, actually. I mean, you're laughing, but at the same time, it's like you really can't want that for even Kurt Angle. Even though you might want to beat him up, you still can't want him to be in that rougher shape.
No, seriously, with the athletes, when you get injured and you get hurt, my dad just got a tumor taken out. He's on chemo. We go through challenges, right? And, we mess around and have some fun and, talk some smack. But at the end of the day, we got to take care of each other as athletes, sports entertainers and, celebrities and this and that. But challenge is, it's just, if you don't take care of, somebody else and you talk smack, you get on a TV show, if you take care of somebody else, nobody knows, and so it's how our programs, more people are fulfilled with, talking smack and being hurt repetitively than actually building the country up, that's why China is about to kick our ass in the next 20 years.
Well, I hope not. I don't know Chinese, so I would fare very well if that was the case. But
so I'll tell you, if the Muslims take over, I'll tell you this. Us guys, we're doing good. All you got to do is become a Muslim. The women in this country, they don't understand what happens when you're in a Muslim country. You have to do what the Muslim men say, or they can stone you, they can kill you, they can, whatever they want to do, they are in complete, utter, supreme control. So I've talked to some women, like, over the last few months, because, more and more Muslim stuff has come up and this and that. And I'm like, hey, just to let you know, a lot of my good friends, they're Muslim. But at the end of the day, you're not gonna like it too much. And they're like, oh, it won't be that bad. I go, no, I don't think you understand. But it is what it is. So.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna delve too much into religion because that seems to be a little bit of a controversial topic. I won't go there.
I thought we were on a show for controversial topics. What's going on, guys?
All right. Well, I just don't want to. I don't feel educated enough about the Muslim religion to speak on it. Let me just put it that way. So,
okay. How about this one? How about Donald Trump? What do you think of him? No.
Okay, well, you want my honest opinion. I was at the WrestleMania where they did the hair versus hair challenge, and I will say, as an entertainer, I thought Donald Trump was a larger-than-life personality. I don't know if I think his business acumen is the best. I don't know if I would vote for him politically, but as an entertainer, I found him a very fascinating person.
You know, I met him after I won Tough Enough. I was on a golf course in either Tahoe or Reno. I forget. It was up that way somewhere. And I introduced myself. He looks at his bodyguard, looks back at me, looks at his bodyguard, and he goes, I think I could kick his ass. And I'm sitting there like, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Well, that does raise a point I wanted to discuss with you, actually. As somebody that came into Tough Enough with a legitimate shoot background, you've done MMA for a while, even before you got into that show. What were your thoughts when you entered the Tough Enough competition? Was pro wrestling something you'd always had a love for, and this was your way to get into it?
You know, I had love for sports in general. I watched pro wrestling. One of my best friends since junior high, Kyle Kingsbury, fights for the UFC. He actually we got into MMA at the same time. We watched pro wrestling when we were younger. He was more into pro wrestling than I was, but, you know, I love entertaining. Being entertained is awesome, you know? So, you know, it was a great experience for me because I grew in my own life and I learned a lot about, you know, who I was just going to be. There's one experience, I don't know if I've talked about this on radio before or a show, but there's one experience that I was in the ring one day when we were training through Tough Enough, and some of the guys would, like, when we were practicing moves, they would do the move, they would do it wrong, and they would stay on the ground. And they would, like, look up at Al and Bill DeMont, Al Snow and Bill DeMont, and they would just look at them on the ground. So as an athlete, what you do is you get off the ground, and you say, okay, please show me how to do it properly, how you want me to do it, right? And so I remember there was one day where Bill DeMont took who was it? It was the Miz's little finger and bent it back to a certain point where it was about to snap. And the Miz was like jumping up and down like, oh, this hurts, right? Mm-hmm. And so I did a move that I did it wrong. And I get off the ground. I look at him. He goes, no, you did it wrong. I go, okay, so what do you want me to do? He goes, come here. He does the same thing to me. I have a straight face, and I look at him, and I go, here's the deal. Are you going to snap it, or are you going to teach me the move so I can do the move right? So he's, like, bending my finger back. And so he, you know, I think it gave him a little bit more respect for who I was. But, you know, just crazy stuff like that, right? It's like, dude, I was there to learn, and WWE had a good thing with me. And because they treated me a certain way, I'll never go back. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, they've failed to capitalize on a golden opportunity, especially given the amount of publicity they got for what happened between you and Angle. But I don't want to dominate the conversation entirely. I do have co-hosts here. So, Daniel, I want to introduce you to Jason Harland and let Jason ask a few questions. Jason, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, good to have you on the show here. And myself, I'm a huge New Japan Pro Wrestling mark. I write reviews of New Japan Pro Wrestling for AngryMarks.com, talk about their pay-per-views here. And I wanted to talk to you about your time there in New Japan Pro Wrestling and get some of your feedback on what that was like, especially teaming with Shinsuke Nakamura in the 2010 G1 Tag League tournament. Yes,
I love Shinsuke Nakamura. What's a funny story is he and I was training at American Kickbox Academy since I was 16 in San Jose, California. And he showed up with a guy named Brian Johnston. And did you ever watch him back in the day in Japan?
Brian Johnston, no.
Okay, so he's a little bit older. He probably would be about 45 now, I'm guessing. Probably about 10 years older than me, a little bit more. So he was coaching Shinsuke for an MMA fight. And I was probably about 17, 18 years old. So it was about 15 years ago. And what was awesome is when I went to Japan and I tag teamed with Shinsuke, it was just great because when I was 16, 17 years old, I was the one that was, you know, like pushing him in MMA, and they were having me train with a bunch. So it's just, you know, in America, right? So then I go to his country and he trains me. So it was just a real blessing to be able to, work with him and be trained by him and all that stuff. And then, just take it to the next level. Then he, I saw the show with his match, and it was just, it's remarkable. He's a rock star, it's such a great show. I think they have a really good product. So I'm hoping that, well, I know it's going to go somewhere, and, he's a rock star. He's a great guy. He's got a great family. His wife is amazing. And so I got to know him. It was really cool.
Yeah, let me pose the question of the week that we had last week to you here. Question of the week I had come up with was, as he is right now, do you think Shinsuke Nakamura could get over with the NXT crowd and with the WWE crowd?
For sure. Shinsuke is such a versatile, he can work in any situation. He's hardworking. He's a great personality. I think he can pull off either a face or a heel. He's really flexible. So I believe that he could get over with anybody. I think him in WWE would be very interesting. I think he would be a superstar very quickly if they gave him the right push.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that he does is nonverbal. It doesn't require knowing language, and just the wrestling that he does just kind of transcends that. Do you still keep in touch with anybody from New Japan? Are you paying attention to the upcoming G1 Climax?
You know what? I haven't. I've been on the road so much with what I do. I haven't. And I got to reach out to Shinsuke and talk to him. I've been wanting to do that. So thanks for reminding me.
No problem at all. That's what I had wanted to ask about. Is there anything? We also have Rob on here as a guest co-host this week. Do you have any questions for him there, Rob?
Yeah, hi, Daniel. Rob McCarron. I just have one question for you, and you just alluded to it about how you're on the road a lot. I'm just curious about what you are doing these days and, not keeping track of the wrestling and fighting game at the highest level at this point. What's got your time these days?
So I run a nonprofit called My Life, My Power. We started off 5 years ago. I gave up the sports world to go help kids that were being bullied and just change the culture and the climate of our country. To give you a couple of stats, we're number one in prisons per capita. We're number one in pharmaceutical drugs. We're number one in old folks' homes. We're I think one of the top countries in divorces, and so we're going to be very, very challenged in the next 10 to 50 years, and there's less value in homes. So I wanted to go add some value as a athlete and just help our country grow. The biggest challenge I get is, educators are so under pressure to just educate that they're, with test taking and all this stuff, they don't have time to really build that relationship with kids and really, to change somebody or to build somebody, you need to train them properly. You need to get them motivated, and if a kid's not motivated to go to school, then they're going to disrupt the whole entire classroom, and that's not going to be good because you're not going to have your whole class learning at the level it should be. So we're out there. We have a program out of the country. We partnered and started working with everywhere from local law enforcement and school districts and teachers to the White House, and it's pretty awesome to be able to see how we're changing lives and how we're helping kids and educators and really turning the cycle on how we're recreating values in our community and our culture and everything. So that's what we're doing. But we just launched My Life, My Power Entertainment. And that is our pro wrestling brand. And I did our first event in Houston last month, and we're doing our next event in September. And so we're just rocking and rolling, and we're going to do another one in November and in Miami, September in LA, and then we're talking about February or March. So we're going to be doing them every quarter this year, and then next year we're looking at doing 8 to 12 events, and then we're going to grow the brand. And there are 100% of the funds that we raise with the event, from sponsors, foundations, ticket sales, goes into funding our programming within that city. So it's pretty cool. We're having a lot of fun changing lives.
Sounds like a very noble effort, Daniel. And I want to follow up on it by asking, you mentioned anti-bullying is part of the program, and of course WWE has their Be a Star anti-bullying program. What are your thoughts on their approach to it as compared to yours?
So theirs actually causes more bullying. And the reason it is because when you go into a school and you tell kids don't bully, kind of like the war on drugs or the DARE program, Drugs Awareness Resistance Education, when you tell somebody don't do something, it actually subconsciously, psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, that sort of thing, the science behind the mindset is you have your subconscious that really recognizes based upon your belief system. And your belief system is built on your past experiences and your perception or your perspective in life. And so what a lot of people, including WWE and other organizations, have done is they create a per se anti-bullying program. What we do is we actually solve bullying, and there's a big difference. So we go in and we have our programming that we implement in the school, where we actually change the mindset of kids. We don't even have to tell a kid don't bully. To get a kid that's doing drugs, you don't tell him don't do drugs, because that's what he's already doing to create fulfillment in his life. So you don't do that to stop a kid and get a kid out of a gang. You give the kid an outlet, create fulfillment, so he has a family. Because kids join a gang based upon valuing, that they want somebody to love them in life. So for me to go into a school and tell somebody don't bully, it actually creates more bullying. You have to figure out the root of the challenges in that person's life, and then you have to solve that.
This sounds familiar to something I've heard a lot of fighters say when I've interviewed them about how they got into fighting, and they've said, I wanted to fit in somewhere. I was getting in trouble at school. My parents didn't love me at home. I had no other outlet but to fight. And once I found mixed martial arts, it gave me discipline. It gave me something to do. It gave me a team of people to work with. It sounds like you have a very similar approach to that with this program.
Correct, we do. And we just partnered with Men's Warehouse on a national level. So every kid that goes through our program now, when they decide to do it for a second year and mentor another kid, we created a peer mentor platform, then they get a free suit, shirt, and shoes.
Wow. That's
so
incredible.
It's a really cool system, because my goal is not to just help the kids stop bullying or drugs or gangs. My kid is to take a kid, whether a kid that's getting straight A's is a rock star, or a kid that's more challenged that has no money that's getting straight A's, right? And I want to take those kids and I want to build the ability within their lives. I want to create that hope and that dream and help them understand their purpose, and then be able to give them a suit, per se, once they finish a program, so that now they can go get an internship within the field that they want to go into, and go get that dream job they want, or start that company that they want, or, go to the college, that they want. So we're really game planning their life at a young age and teaching them all the life skills that they need, starting at about 5 years old is our new program that's coming out. 4 or 5 years old is when we're going to start it. So right now we start about 10 years old. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I don't think it's ever too young to learn about those kind of things, like managing your money, knowing how to present yourself to people, knowing what you want out of life. You can start at any age with that. I don't think there's a limit.
I agree 100%. And, a lot of people told me in the past, my kid doesn't need this. And then they get bullied, and I'm like, okay, well, how did your kid handle it? Oh, he hit the other kid, or he picked on him back and got in trouble. Okay, so why don't you just spend more time in love with your kid and teach them how to handle the situation right? Well, how do I do that? And parents don't know how to teach their kid right because they never go to parenting classes and learn it. So we go into school districts, to PTAs, to law enforcement agencies, and we actually train them on how to teach their kids the right way to perceive life. Because if somebody picks on me, I can look at it two ways. Either A, I hurt them back, physically or mentally, or emotionally, or B, I look at, okay, this person is hurting in their life, and that's why they're picking on me. So let me find out what's going on with them, and I can help them become more successful so they stop picking on me and other people.
And that's why I always thought the anti-bullying effort by WWE smacked of hypocrisy, because CM Punk said this once to Vince McMahon live on Raw. He said, "How dare you talk about anti-bullying? You're the biggest bully I know." It's like, how can they teach people to not be bullies and how to conduct themselves better in relationships with others when everybody in that company seems to use their position of power to boss other people around?
And that's it's very hypocritical. The only reason they do something, and they don't even help that many kids, I'll tell you right now, the only reason they do stuff is to get good PR. And they really don't care about their kids. You know, at the end of the day, the kids that watch it, I ask the kids all the time. They go, you know, have you ever met so-and-so or so-and-so? And I go, yeah. They go, oh, I'd love to meet him sometime too. And I go, that's awesome. I go, but do you think he really cares about you? Or wouldn't he be here mentoring you and helping you? And I just ask them questions, and they go, oh, I get it. I go, if somebody really cares about you, they're going to want to help you. You show me one other pro athlete in the WWE that has spent 5 years of his life making less money than I've ever made in 1 year of fighting within 5 years to be able to go serve other people and help people. Doesn't happen. People are about their money, their power, their greed, and their fame.
Well, I think it's very noble. I can't think of any better word for it than that. Noble that you would donate your time and your life lessons and your ability to transform kids' lives in that way. But since you did mention that you gave it up and it was more lucrative, I have to ask you the follow-up question. What would, if anything, ever lure you back to mixed martial arts? Is there anybody out there or any one fight that you could take that would lure you back?
Yes, I want to fight Kurt Angle. I want to fight him now. I will fight him in the hospital. I will fight him in a cage, in a ring, on a mat, on a carpet, on the street, in a car, on a bus, on a train, in a plane. It does not matter. I will fight that guy anywhere.
Well, what if it could be like a charity match where the proceeds from the show went to your Empowerment Foundation? What about that?
See? Now that is a good idea. Because I'm telling you right now, if Kurt Angle and I did something, we could raise so much money, we can even contract Kurt Angle to go speak around the country to help kids.
Honestly, that might be a better role for him at this point, because at his age and with his neck injuries that are very well reported and documented, I'm not sure I really want him to even wrestle anymore, let alone take MMA fights. Every time he takes a bump, I worry that he's going to end up in a wheelchair. I'd love to see him as a motivator and an empowerment speaker as opposed to in the ring.
He has so much potential to make something from his gold medal to WWE, his TNA, to everything he's done, that he could make such a huge impact on this country and motivate this country to get off their asses and do something. It would be priceless.
It would. You couldn't put a value on that. And people would believe it because Kurt Angle, he says it all the time. It's real. It's damn real. So if he tells you that, it's going to come across as legitimate because this guy won a gold medal with a broken neck. How much more real can that get?
I'm telling you, I mean that it's a selling point.
It is.
I would love to do something like that. I mean, I would love it. You know, it just comes down to him actually wanting to, you know, go from pro wrestling to actually helping somebody, you know, and you know, yeah, there's hardly any money in it, but at the end of the day, you know, with somebody like that, you know, I mean, bigger sponsors come on and he can really make a career out of that.
Well, speaking of sponsors, I will ask another MMA-related question because we have seen a big change in the landscape in the last couple of weeks with sponsors now being banned in UFC. Everybody has to wear uniforms. I know you're not following it like, you know, full-time anymore because you're doing empowerment work, but do you think that's a good or a bad thing for fighters that they can't have sponsors anymore?
Are you kidding me? I mean, how are they supposed to make money?
I guess the UFC pays them a stipend based on how many fights they have, and the money comes from Reebok. Like, if you've had 1 to 5 fights, you get so much money. If you've had 15 to 20 fights, you get so much money. But it's not a lot, not compared. I've heard people say it's like 1/10 of what they used to get from sponsors.
And that's going to be the challenge, right? I mean, at the end of the day, for people to be able to do that financially, I mean, they're letting them do it. I mean, the fighters let UFC do that. So that, and that's why the other brands are I think are going to come up, and eventually, I mean, when you don't treat people good, you can only stay big for so long. So it's a short-lived game that they're playing right now. I think that they could grow so much more, but they're thinking about their bottom line, right today, instead of how do we build these fighters and become the biggest and the best and just rule the world,
I have to wonder if CM Punk really thought that's what he was signing up for, because, I mean, they're probably going to give him like $500,000 to fight to make up for what he won't get in sponsorships. But when he jumped over to UFC, he must have thought, man, this is so much better than WWE. I won't be under anybody's thumb. I won't have to follow all these rules. And now he's going to have a whole new set of rules. Nothing will change.
Of course, and it's real. He doesn't win, he doesn't get paid, he doesn't get another fight.
Right. Unless, of course, he can go on The Ultimate Fighter and be a coach. But who wants to have a coach that has an 0-1 record? I don't think anybody will listen to him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he has to really work hard. It's no joke, I mean, it's going to be a hard gig.
Yeah, well, as somebody who's done both, what do you rate his chances as?
I think he's got a chance. I'll say that. But I think the chance at the end of the day is it's the challenge is that he's got to continue to win. So if he doesn't win, then he's done. And
right.
I mean, it's a challenge. I think it's going to be very hard for him to stay winning. Now, his personality, if he wins, he will be the biggest thing since sliced bread. Just because he can talk and he gets it. And he. He's a good guy. Everything I've seen from him when I met him and we were at OVW and everything else, he's always very, very nice to me. He's been a very great guy, but it's a challenging world.
Well, speaking of how you were treated at OVW, you said there were people that made you not want to ever come back to WWE again, and I know part of it was the fact that they were shady with the contract. Like, it was supposed to be $1 million, and then it was like $250,000 a year, and then it went downhill from there. But obviously, things other than money play a part in why you felt disrespected.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only thing. I mean, the main thing is, if you offer me $50,000 and I'm making $250,000, and you offer me $50,000, but I have a 4-year deal at $250,000, that's just ridiculous, So it's just all around disrespectful and not loyal. And I don't want to be with a company or anybody who's not going to be loyal long term, because when they wanted me to be somewhere, I was there. When they wanted me to bust my butt, I did it. And I worked my butt off. So it is what it is. I mean, it came into politics, and it was a blessing, at the same time, and I'm very, I went back to fighting. I did some fights. I did really well, and now I'm here today. So I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, it did get you some extra exposure, so it didn't all turn out bad in the end. It's just disappointing, and I won't be the first person to say this, and I won't be the last person to say this, but they've had a consecutive run now of seasons of Tough Enough where the winner is basically never seen on TV again, and they wonder why the ratings are so low in 2015 for the current show they got going on. It's hard to believe that anybody will come out of this show and be a star, because they've had the opportunity. They had it with you and they blew it, and they had it over and over again, and nobody has. It's like almost a curse to win the show. It's like the runners-up seem to do better.
Well, it's because the runners-up, I mean, they can get them for nothing, and they can push them, and it is what it is, I mean, it's just, but I don't know, it's crazy. But yeah, that's why people don't want to watch it, is because they keep throwing the guys that win under the bus.
Well, on that note, I'm going to tag it to Rob. I'm sure he's got a couple of follow-up questions. So, Rob, go ahead.
When you were given the offer for the $1 million contract through Tough Enough, was it ever described to you beforehand or during that, like in any asterisk, that it wasn't actually $1 million, that you were going to get something else, or was that something they blindsided you with?
No, that was the deal from the very beginning. But what they blindsided me with is after about 6 months, they said, "Oh no.
Yeah.
We're going to offer you $50,000 next year."
Oh.
And then I was like, "Hold on, what?"
That's quite the decrease.
I mean, what would you do? If you got a job, you moved somewhere, you did what they were told, and then they gave you a fifth of what they told you they were going to pay you. How would you feel?
Yeah, I wouldn't be too happy now. You mentioned that you've seen the most recent Tough Enough, the new season that's going on now. A little bit different than the season that you were on. How do you think you would fare with the format that's going on now, and would you still be as outspoken as you were then?
I have no clue if I would have been. I was definitely very well prepared with promos and physically and so I believe that I would do a lot better than a lot of the people that are up there. I just don't like, it's just different. If they think they can get away with that and get the ratings, then, it is what it is. But if I were them, I would have brought me back, to do the Tough Enough, and just run the Tough Enough, because I would have built these guys up so big time and did completely different than just, bring them down. And I would have pushed them against each other and did teamwork stuff and played team against team. And, it's less about like putting them down. It's more about, showing competition and showing which guy, like on my Tough Enough, it was always, we had to dress up like this or do an up-down competition or run sprints or, there was all these different things that we had to do that people wanted to watch. My ratings on my Tough Enough, I heard they would triple what the normal show was on our segments. So, I don't know. I would have done the format a lot differently.
Jason?
Okay, I have a follow-up question for you here, too. Daniel, as you said, you are following the current season of Tough Enough, and we here at Angry Marks kind of have our own favorite son there, so to speak, in Tough Enough. ZZ the Cajun, what are your thoughts on him?
So I've only watched a couple of the segments. I haven't watched all of them, so I'll have to check them out. I haven't. So what does he look like?
He's the blonde guy, the alligator wrestler.
Nah, I haven't.
Bigger, burlier, wears like teeth necklace around his neck. Yeah.
Yeah, like a shark tooth necklace.
Yeah, I didn't see him.
No, he just kind of stands out on the show, kind of like the way you stood out on the show, because there's just something that draws your attention to him that makes you notice him every time he's on screen. Like, he comes across as completely different from everybody else.
Well, I like him already.
I suppose that's fair, but let me ask you something about your stint in Ring of Honor, because that was around the time that one of my favorite people in all of professional wrestling was Claudio Castagnoli, who we now know in WWE as Cesaro, and you made your debut by attacking Claudio. What are your memories of that time?
I really enjoyed ROH. Good experience, great guys, liked the owners a lot. It was a good time. I wish I would have done more with them. And, it's funny because I started wrestling with our brand and I've been getting calls every week now to go wrestle around the country. And it's just, I'm really focused on helping kids and building the product that we have. So I'm turning them down right now, but, I'm always open to future stuff with different people. And it's just interesting to be able to see. So, I wish I would have done more. They got a great brand, great team. So I was really, stoked to wrestle for them.
Yeah, and they're doing some really good stuff this year, aligning themselves with New Japan Pro Wrestling, doing dual-branded events, bringing in the stars of New Japan. So it's an exciting time for them. But one of the other things I remember about that brief run in Ring of Honor is that you were aligned with Sweet and Sour Incorporated, and unfortunately Larry Sweeney is no longer with us, but maybe if you could give us any thoughts about him, because he was one of my favorite managers in wrestling.
He was, I didn't get to spend too much time with him because I was only out there, for a very limited time, but great guy. I liked working with him, and again, I wish I would have gotten some more time to work with him. It would have been great for him to call me back and continue with a contract.
I wish we all could have got more time with him, but unfortunately there were other plans for his life, and he's probably in heaven looking down on us right now. So that's all I can say about that. But Rob has something to say, so I'm going to let him go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask you this, and I'm completely serious when I ask this, but Daniel, have you ever seen a ghost?
Well, people call it different things. So, yeah, I've had some very interesting experiences in the last 5 years.
Yeah? Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, I'll give you one, for instance. I sat down with a guy on Melrose 5 years ago. His name is Bill. And he goes, you have a dream. And I go, I don't dream. I don't go into REM. I've done sleep tests. I go into REM about 20% of the time. He goes, no, you're going to have dreams. I'm like, okay. So my buddy Todd hooks me up with this guy, Bill. And my buddy Todd goes, no, everything he tells you, just watch. I'm like, all right. So about 2 weeks later, had a dream. He calls me up. He goes, tell me the dream. About 3-4 weeks later after that dream, I get a text message from my buddy Todd. And I would say they're, I would say ghosts, spirits, same kind of concept, right? We call it different things. And my buddy Todd texts me something about a lion, and I saw him that night almost get eaten by a big ass lion. So I text him back, watch out for lions. And so it was just interesting because, I've had multiple things like that happen. One of my best friends, dated a guy, and I woke up in the middle of the night, felt so much hurt and pain in my life and fear. Like I don't do that. And I text her, hey, you okay? And no text back in the morning. She texts me, I wake up. She goes, yeah, I'm good. And I go, whoever you're with, I had no clue who she was with. I go, whoever you were with last night is going to hurt you. Like I feel the pain. Like I don't know what it is. So she goes, yeah, whatever. Well, like 6 months later, he gets tied in with murder charges. No. So I've had some if you say ghosts, I call them spiritual stuff, but I have a very close, like multiple things like that. It happens to me every month now. It's very interesting. So she calls me now, that same girl I told her about the guy. She calls me up before she flies and she goes, hey, any dreams about the airlines? I'm like, no.
Yeah, people got to know. I mean, if it's come true before, people have to know if they're, looking for danger here.
Yeah, right. So I don't necessarily feel everything, but when I have a feeling, I go to that person and I go, something's going on. I don't know what it is. So it's been very unique this last few years.
It almost sounds like future vision, like you see things happening before they take place.
I don't know what it is. I just hear a voice and I tell that person, and that person then will do what they want. And now people have listened when I've told them things. So it's pretty interesting.
Were you ever nervous when you first started, having these feelings? Were you ever nervous to go to the person, like the first time you thought this, to even say anything? Like, what is this person going to think when I tell them that, oh, I have this premonition or I have this feeling about whoever they're with or whatever the case may be? Like, did you want to keep it to yourself?
Like the first one, it had my buddy text me about lions before I text him about lions. Oh, he was like, oh, I was up last night, and he funds some crazy projects, right? Crazy, like this, I can tell you off air what he funds to help people, like crazy stuff, gets people out of concentration camps, like nutty stuff, right? In some countries. And so he was like, I was up last night waiting for me to kill my family. Like it's just insane. So that one, he texted me before, and then I texted him because I was going to talk to my buddy Bill before I texted him. And hey, sweetie. And so my brother's daughter just ran in. Oh. How old is she now? 16 months. Hey, bye. So it's just really unique to be able to feel and I don't know. It is what it is. I think I spend a lot of time praying these days and connected and it, I get what I get. So.
Outside of what you're currently doing with your program, your foundation, what's the most you've ever been fulfilled? Like, what's the time in your life where you were the most satisfied?
I would have to say now, like in my life now. I would, it's more than when I was a pro athlete. Just being able to really create fulfillment in like thousands of people is, you know, eventually I want it tens of thousands and then millions and, you know, and then, you know, billions, you know. So however I can be used in my life to make an impact on this world, that's what I want to go for.
Well, Daniel, you've obviously made an impact with many thousands of kids and millions of people who've seen you, whether it's in MMA or wrestling. So I want to continue to wish you success and have more people get to experience the empowerment that you can give them, especially the kids who need it the most. So how can people discover it? How can people find out the tour schedule? How can they follow you on social media to get more information?
They can go to mylifemypower.org, or they can go to mylifemypowerentertainment.org, or they can go to danielpuder.com. And if they put their email addresses in, then they can you know, subscribe to one of our websites, and we'll update them on what we have going on. And if they really want us to come to their city and they want to do something with us on all the wrestling events, we're partnering with local promotions to be able to help local promotions build their name value too. So I want to work with other local promotions around the country also. So we're going to have a lot of fun.
All right. Well, hey, is there any chance that we might just see one of these programs during a WrestleMania weekend?
Hey, you know what? I would love to. We got some plans. I can't tell you on air, but we'll talk sometime when we sit down. You'll see what we're going to do the next 6 months or so. And if I can build it right, it's going to be interesting. We're going to have some fun with it.
I can't wait to find out what those future plans are. Even if you can't tell us right now on the air, I look forward to hearing about them later. So, Daniel, I want to thank you again for the time. And I want to ask one last thing before we let you go, because Jordan can't be here tonight and he kicked my ass if I didn't ask you this. Can you give us a plug where you mentioned AngryMarks.com? You can word it any way you want.
Yep. Okay. My name is Daniel Puder. I am $1 Million Tough Enough's champion, and you're watching AngryMarks.com.
That's
It's AngryMarks.com?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you got it.
Okay,
you nailed it first take. So thank you very much, and we appreciate the time tonight, and best of luck to you and all the success with My Power, My Life. I think it's a great program. I want to see it continue to thrive and flourish. So thank you again for the time.
Thank you guys. Let me know when you guys post this, and I'll put it out to all my social media and all that stuff. I appreciate it.
Will do. We'll send you the link. Thank you again.
Cool. You got it. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.